My name is Sarah Segar. This Facebook Live is going to be all about how to use my free PBL implementation spreadsheet. If you don't have it, this PBL implementation spreadsheet is a Google Sheets that you can access right now if you wish. There is a link in the description. You can click on that, head over to your email. It should be in your inbox, possibly your promotions, and it's a welcome video or a welcome email from me that has a link to your own copy of this implementation spreadsheet. So you can go grab that now. This PBL spreadsheet, once you find it in your email and you click on that link, this is what you're going to find. What you're going to do is click on make a copy, and you're simply going to get your own copy. It will pop up, I think. Hopefully that's what happens with me. And if it doesn't, you can find it in your Google Drive. So you'll click on that, and what you'll see is this. This is the PBL spreadsheet that I use. So why do I use this? What is this for? What this does is, let's say I have 4 different sets of students coming into my classroom every day. And I do self-directed project-based learning with them each day. So I don't plan or design project-based learning for them. They plan their own around their own interests. They might work in teams, they might work independently, but generally my students are managing and implementing and executing and designing their own PBLs. So what the spreadsheet does is give me a nice little glimpse on where they are in the process of each of their projects. I've had people ask, how do you keep track of all of the students who have projects going on at a time in your classes? So again, if I have 4 sections a day and I have 25 kids in each section, I could be managing 100 different projects at a time, trying to figure out who is where, if they're making progress, and if they're not making progress, how I can help them with that. So this is a really important spreadsheet that I use, and I keep it front and center on my desktop when I'm in the classroom. When I'm working with students, I keep this here so that I can come in here and check off these checkpoints as students are completing them. So let's say I'm going to use this spreadsheet for my environmental science students. So I'm just going to go up here and change the name, environmental science 2022, or maybe you put Q1 or whatever can help you organize yourself. Okay, so I've changed the name to this. This spreadsheet is for my students in my environmental science class. Okay, so then I'm going to come down here before I get into anything else here. And I'm going to, so let's say I have 3 separate classes of environmental science a day, all of which students are doing self-directed project-based learning in. I'm going to make a separate sheet for each of those classes. So to do that, I'm going to come down here where it says sheet, and I'm going to rename it to, let's just say period 1. You can call that whatever you want to distinguish between classes or between sets of students. And then I just clicked on that tiny little arrow there, and I'm going to duplicate this. And you want to duplicate it before you start filling this in so that you're only duplicating the template instead of any of the details that you're adding. So let's change the name to that. Same way, I'm going to put period 2, and so on. So I can keep duplicating and keep renaming for as many sections as I have for environmental science. Okay, so then on the left-hand side here is just my student's name. So in period 1, I could go to period 2 if I want, and these students' names would change. I'm going to stay in period 1. This is their sheet. I'm going to put their names in the left-hand column. And the reason there are 3 rows per student's name is for projects. So you may have students doing more than 1 project at a time. If they're not doing that and you would like to just simplify the spreadsheet a little bit, you can delete these rows. So I'm just clicking on 6, I'm dragging down. I'm going to go up to edit, delete, and just the rows that I highlighted. I don't want Sarah S. doing 2 projects, I want her doing 1. And then the project topic she would put here. And then as we go down, you can scroll over and their names stay put because I have this frozen here for you. It's formatted to stay that way. And as we go down, we're basically looking at a checklist of PBL steps or checkpoints that students make in the process of their PBL experience, from designing a project-based learning experience to being evaluated for one and everything in between. So these are very general checkpoints. If you want to add others to make it more detailed, you can certainly do that, and I will show you how to do that in a second. But let's just start with, I'm just going to go through this as an example, and I'll show you some cool little features as we go. So for Sarah S, I put, these are 3 students. Let's say I have only 3 students in my class. That would be crazy, but we're just going to use this as an example. I put Sarah S, Sarah G, Sarah P. I'm Sarah. It just makes it easier. So let's say I am having my environmental science students design their own project-based learning experiences around a theme. And that theme is endangered species. So in other words, they're given this theme of endangered species, but they're going to design their own project around that theme. And I need to keep track of all of the steps they're taking from the design to the execution process. So let's say Sarah S decides to do her endangered species project on burrowing owls. This is an endangered bird in Minnesota. So project topic, I'm just giving a general overview of what her topic is. Sarah G is going to do her endangered species project on piping plovers, another endangered bird in Minnesota. And Sarah S is going to do her endangered species project on northern cricket frogs. I think they're endangered amphibians. Okay, and then you go down the line. If you have more than 3 students in your class, you would continue down the line for this particular project that they're doing. The project intro is basically the introduction to the project. So I might introduce this project by trying to get them to brainstorm endangered species that matter to them or that are important in their community. I might show a documentary that introduces this idea. So the project introduction, I believe, is very important. And if Sarah, let's say Sarah G and Sarah P were there for the project introduction, I would mark that they were there. And right here, DOC just means date of completion. So what date did that happen? Maybe it was October 25th, and then Sarah S missed it. So I would know by looking at this spreadsheet, oh my gosh, Sarah S missed the introduction to this endangered species project, and what am I going to do about that? So I would have a system or a plan to catch her up, okay? So moving on, let's say she gets caught up by one of her friends. Okay. Then next is project design. And we have deadline here, checking the box if they completed their project design, and again, date of completion. So the deadline, let's say I want them to complete this project design by 10/28. Okay, I would just write that in there. And then once Sarah's completed it, I will click completion, and I can write in here her date of completion if I wish. Project proposals, it's the same idea down the lines. You might find that some of this is unnecessary or just superfluous, or you have students that maybe your situation is unique and you need to add something to this. So this is a completely editable document. So I'm going to show you how to do that. If you don't want to do a project intro, I highly discourage that. Try to do a project intro. But if you don't want that, click here on the E, just kind of drag your cursor over so it's all highlighted, go to edit and delete those columns. It's no longer there, okay? If you're finding that date of completion is unnecessary, you don't need to know when they completed it, it's just too much, you can get rid of those. So you click on the letter above and you can highlight those. And if you press Command, you can highlight more than one at a time. Oops. And then same idea, you go over to Edit, Delete, and you delete the selected columns. I'm going to undo that because I do want those there. So this is, like I said, an editable document. Really work with it and make it your own. If you don't need these things, if they're bogging you down, then get rid of it. If you have checkpoints here that you don't want, get rid of them. If you have a checkpoint that you want to add it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's say you want your you want to see or keep track of whether your students have done a first draft or a prototype of their final product. So instead of just the final of their final product, you want to also recognize whether they've completed a draft. So you're going to highlight that section, press Command Copy. I'm using a Mac. I'm not sure if it's the same with every computer, but if you just highlight this and then copy it, however you want to do that, you could probably just go up here, Edit and Copy. And then I want to get out of that. I want to go to Insert Columns, 3 columns to the left, and then I'm going to Command V, which is pasted in there. Whoops. That should be boxes, and you can do that. You can add boxes by going to Insert and Checkbox. You'll just have to play around with it for a little bit. But right now you can see, okay, it says final product, final, final product, final. We don't want that twice. I want to put draft. So final product, draft. Okay, so I added a whole new component. I'm going to get rid of that because I don't want it. These tasks up here, these checkpoints, are what I like to use. And these are really the basics of my process. These are the major checkpoints. I have several checkpoints in between that aren't on here because I think that it's unnecessary to have all of the details in the spreadsheet. I don't want to overwhelm myself. I don't want to get bogged down in details. This is really supposed to be a glimpse of what your students are doing so that you can be a facilitator, be a mentor by knowing where they're at and having a good idea of what they need based on what they're showing you here. If you have a student that has not completed any of these things, you know that there needs to be some sort of intervention there. After watching this, please reach out, and I would love to talk more about my implementation spreadsheet in general, or anything about PBL.